Hey, 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 party people. It's Brandi and Cesley, and we're back with Blooming Through Faith, the podcast that helps you grow and bloom in your mindset, lifestyle, health, and wealth. We want you to know that you are capable, beautiful, and worthy. All right. In today's episode, we're diving into the core elements that build a strong foundation for a lasting relationship. We'll be discussing crucial aspects such as effective communication, aligning your goals and values, balancing career and marriage, keeping the spark alive, and navigating life after kids. Whether you're newly engaged, happily married, or dating, there's something in here for everyone. And we're gonna say this is one of our favorite topics too. Okay, we love our
We love love.
spouses. We love love, and we want everybody to have strong, lasting relationships. So we're gonna give you a few tips. This first one is really important if you are in really important if you're in the dating stages, right? You're getting to know people before saying I do, before committing, right? You need to understand their goals and values. You need to talk about your goals and values together, all right? So discussing future goals, talking about career ambitions, talking about family plans, talking about your personal aspirations, talking about how many kids do you want? Because let me tell you, this is real awkward, right? So like if you want 5 kids and you marry somebody who wants 0,
Yeah.
that is a conversation that
Happens a lot. Yeah.
yes, unfortunately it does happens prior to getting married, right? Also talk about like what sets their soul on fire, what sets your soul on fire, what are you passionate about, but also you guys don't have to be passionate about the same things. You know what I mean? I was also actually talking to Cecily about this the other day, which was like when Mitch and we've known each other since we were kids, but we didn't start dating till we were adults. And on our first date, I'm like, hey, babe, like, what are you passionate about? And yes, I called him babe because we've known each other our whole life. So I'm like, what are you passionate about? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? What makes you happy? And he's like, well, I just want to be married. I want to go to work, come home, have some cold beers, and come home to my wife and kids. And I was like, yeah, that's it. That makes you happy. Like that's it's
simple. He's a simple man.
yeah. And I'm like, I want to save lives and impact the world and give back and da da da. And he's like,
And Brandi brought her resume.
oh my gosh. But listen, that works for us. That's who we are. That's how God planned us to be. And I think that I absolutely love that. And we help each other out in that way. If I was married to a man who had like maybe all of the same goal, like he was wanting to travel all the time and impact lives and write books and do things like that, like it would kind of clash. So give people the opportunity. Because at first I was like, oh, weird. You have no dreams or wants. And now I'm like, yeah, he's the best dad. He's the best, husband. Like I am so blessed to have him. All right, moving right along. Aligning values. All right. So identifying and understanding each other's core values and how they shape your relationship. So if one of your core values is integrity, which is mine, what you're doing when nobody's watching, well, maybe you need to make sure the person that you're going to be aligning your life with has the same core values. Is it trust? Is it loyalty? Because if you guys don't have the same values, you're going to have some issues in the long run, right? So like if there's a piece of trash on the ground, I'm going to pick it up and throw it away. If Mitch is like, oh, that's weird, just leave it there. Maybe we wouldn't like that. I think what Tommy did that, you said that at when you guys were first talking or something, threw away.
Yeah. Our first date, actually, he did a couple of things. So one, he like bussed the table for the waiter. So like he completely cleaned off the table for the waiter. Like he didn't want to impose on the waiter. And that was already like a green flag because I was like, oh my gosh, he's so kind. Like he wasn't just like, all right, leave a tip, let's go. Like he didn't want to leave extra work for the people that worked there, which was just the kindest thing. And then he was always opening doors for people. And we were walking to the car and he picked up a bunch of trash just in the middle of the street. And I still to this day, I guarantee you he doesn't even remember that, but he carried it. We were walking. It was a pretty long walk from where we were eating to where the car was. And he like carried it all the way until he found a trash can. So he's like on our first few dates, we're like walking and he's holding a piece of trash in his hand, just waiting till he finds a trash can to go throw it away in. And I was just like, this is so sweet. So like, notice the little things when you first start dating someone. Those become the big things.
100%. Good things and bad things.
Yeah.
Somebody might have aggressive behavior. Somebody is putting you down, like those things. Somebody's controlling. That's not positive
Yeah.
behavior, my friends. But that's for another podcast that we'll have to talk about. Okay, we have one more thing here. Make sure that you guys are just like after marriage too, okay? So it's important to know before, but after marriage, discuss your vision, your goals, your vacations, right? So every year, towards the end of the year, Mitch and I get together and we look at the next year. What do we want to accomplish? What are our goals when it comes to finances? What are our goals when it comes to things around the house? What are our goals with our kids? What vacations are we taking with our kiddos? What vacations are we taking on our own? Like, we are discussing these things always to make sure that we are rowing in the right direction.
Yeah. I think all of that is so, so important. And just like the one thing that Brandi mentioned that I think is so important is like the little things really do add up and turn into the big things. So don't if you are starting a relationship with somebody and there are little things that are little red flags, don't just think, oh, that's not such a big deal. Like, take priority. There's billions of people on the planet. There is somebody out there for you. Like, I promise you, do not settle just because you think like, oh, I'm in an okay relationship. Like, no, do not do that. Do not do that to yourself. And we are speaking not just from having brilliant relationships, but Brandi and I are both people who have come from really terrible relationships. So we've been on both sides of the fence, and there have been a lot of things that we have let slide that we really should not have, that should have been red flags in our first relationships, and we didn't. And so now we're in such wonderful marriages that it's easy to say like, oh, these are things you should definitely pay attention to, because we didn't a long time ago.
We
Now
lived
we
and
did.
we lived and we learned, and we don't
Yeah.
want you guys to do that. And like
Trying to help
Cecily
you out.
said, we try to help you out. Don't settle.
Mm-mm.
Don't settle. Don't especially if it's an abusive relationship that you are currently in, do not settle, okay? Because you are worthy of so much more, and there is
Yeah.
somebody out there for you. And I know it's easy to just be like, oh, will somebody understand me the way that they do? Will somebody like me the way that they do? Yes, they will, and somebody will treat you better, babe. Don't settle.
100%. And that actually leads really nicely into our next one, which is communication. And so effective communication is so crucial for not just a healthy relationship, healthy marriage, but just a healthy life. So like, before even getting into what good communication looks like, just like Brandi just said, don't settle. And if there are things that you're wishing that you had in your relationship, bring it up. And bring it up in the early stages. Like, if you're in your mind thinking, there's so many women who are like, oh, I wish that my boyfriend was more generous. Oh, I wish that they were kinder to me. Oh, I wish that they took my feelings into consideration more. But they do all these other things. No, speak up. Like, speak up, make your point heard. And how they respond is a really good indicator of what, because a lot of times, you know, people in relationships, we're just kind of paying attention to ourselves. We don't really understand what the other person's perspective. So if you're bringing it up to your partner and they are really good about saying like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, let me fix that, then that's a really great green flag. That's a great green flag. So communication, you always want to make sure that you are actively listening to your partner. Y'all, this is for like women and men, because we as women sometimes don't do this either. Like, truly making sure that you're hearing and understanding your partner's perspective is such a huge deal. Ask them about their day. Even if you don't care about it, to be totally honest, there's going to be a lot of things your partner does in their day that you're going to be like, I don't understand that. Brandi's husband works in construction. My husband works in retail management. He sells beer and wine all day. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
just
it matters
pretend.
to you. So I'm going to care about it. Like, I care about you, so I care about this, right? My husband does not care about who I've discipled that day, whose problems I heard about that day, what fitness thing I did that day. He does not care, but he listens, and it's nice, okay? So make sure that you're also able to express your feelings with your partner, just being open with them. And I talked a little bit about this a minute ago, but it's so important to not hide things from your partner. Your partner should be your everything. And if they're not, this is a good chance to take a quick like check at your relationship and say, is this the right relationship for me? Or am I doing the right things to make this relationship what I want it to be? Because you should always be able to be open and honest about your emotions without blaming someone else for them. It's totally okay. So for my husband and I, we can live in a space where I am frustrated, where I am overwhelmed, where I am angry, where I am upset, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault. And he will sit and listen. And I can say, like, I'm frustrated or overwhelmed at all these things. It's not your fault, but I need you to be able to lean on. I need to be able to say these things to you. And that should be totally okay. So really try to express your emotions to your partner without making it as if it's their fault, because I promise you, they love you. They care about you. They don't want to hurt you. All right. The next one is going to be really making time to do regular check ins with your partner, your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, like really wherever you're at in a relationship, make sure you're leaving time for regular check ins to talk about your relationship. This has to be time like away from children, away from work, away from regular schedules. Brandy's going to talk a little bit about like date nights and things like that. But this can even just be like hey, before we go to work today, I need like 10 minutes and I just want to check in. Like, how are we doing? Like, it's like a remote. You're just pressing pause, right? You're just pressing pause on your relationship, on your day to say, hey, how are we? How are you? Here's how I am. It's like a temperature check. And y'all, the last thing I want to mention is you should always be asking about their day every single day. Even if you've had a bad day, check in with your partner. It matters. It takes 10 minutes and it makes a difference in your relationship.
Yeah, that's so good. And I really love the communicating throughout the day. So, like Mitch and I, we check on each other. Hey, how's your morning going? How's your afternoon going? Like throughout the day, texting. I want him to know no
I love
matter
that.
what's going on throughout the day, like he's top priority. I'm never too busy for him. And then I like to send him like videos and different things of what the baby's doing too.
I love
That's a good
that.
one. And then
Aw.
also like communicate when you're frustrated about something. Don't let like your spouse, your significant other continue to do things that frustrate you until it builds up and you just explode. That is not healthy. My husband knows and my friends know. Like actually Cecily, she's been a little spicy lately. So I messaged her today and I was like, "Are you mad at me? Like what
Cecily,
is
are you
going
okay?
on? Are you okay?" And she's just been sick and
Yeah.
there's been a lot going on, but I'm the type of person I'm like, "Hey, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's going on." So like if Mitch does something that makes me mad, I tell him, even if it's something like he cheated on me in my dreams, I'm like, "I can't believe you did that again." And
How
Mitch is like,
dare
"Brandy."
he?
He's like, "I can't keep telling you." Like, I still tell him, I'm like, "I'm mad at you today. I
Yeah.
didn't want to text you this morning because in my dreams, he's like, you're out of control." But at least he knows. But anytime he does something that upsets me, even though that wasn't his fault, but like real things like forgetting to put like the liner in the trash can, that's a little frustrating
Yeah.
sometimes. I tell him. Actually, I don't. I let that one go now, Cecily. There's other things. Okay. There's other things. But like
That's a
it
good one to let
literally,
go, probably.
yeah, I do. I let that one go now because it doesn't matter. I'm happy he took
Yeah.
the trash out. I've learned from my mistakes
Yeah.
there. But maybe he talked to me a certain way when he was frustrated with the kids. I tell him the next day, like, "Hey, babe, you spoke to me this way, or upset me, it hurt my feelings because you're not anymore." Right. So little things like that. Make sure you're communicating. Moving right along. Let's talk about keeping the spark alive. All
Ooh.
right. Yes. So regular date nights. Let's go. So scheduling that time together is so important. And we've talked about it on the podcast, but really when you're working all the time, when you're with your kids all the time, life gets busy and you forget to take time for each other. That's when issues happen in relationships. That's when you start fighting. That's when, bad things happen because you're not communicating with your spouse and you're not having those active date nights. I would suggest once a month. Once a week is a lot. Like if you're getting married, really, you don't have kids and you guys are engaged. Yeah, weekly date nights would be so fun and doing something different, spontaneous. Also get to know your partner while you're on these dates. Like, hey, what was your favorite thing that you did when you were a child? Hey, what do you love about your dad? What do you love about your mom? Like asking these questions so you guys aren't always just talking about your day, but you're like getting to know each other a little bit better. And your spouse is like, oh, they're really interested in X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important. Let's say making time for each other during busy periods, like I just kind of talked about, but like also special time together. You guys know what I'm talking about. Bounce, you go wow, wow, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So again, we get tired and things happen, but like make sure that you're taking that time to connect for each other. That is
Mhm.
really important part of a marriage
Yeah.
and relationship. But you know what? I'm just
And if
saying,
you're
if you're on here and you're like,
struggling,
you shouldn't
yeah.
do that before marriage, that's okay too.
Yeah. Listen,
That wasn't me.
I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not even going to touch
I'm not
that,
allowed to talk
okay?
about that.
That's not what this episode is about. However, if you are struggling in how to connect with your partner, you should listen to the episode on love languages and learn a little bit about your partner's love language. Invest in your partner. But what I really enjoy about what Brandi just said was not just doing regular date nights, but doing different things, because you just bring out a different side of your partner when you do different things. And listen, nobody knows what it's like to be tired more than we do. Okay. We have multiple kids. We run multiple businesses. We have been we travel for work. We do all kinds of different things. Like, we know what it's like to be busy and to be like, okay, I'm just exhausted. Let's let it slide. But I promise you, it is worth the effort. And you don't realize how much it's worth it until you actually do the thing. Like, you have to actually go on the date, and then you're like, oh, this is so nice. Like, why don't we ever do, because it is easier to just stay in pajamas and like cancel and like not have to do things, right? But you have
100%.
to make the time. You have to make the time. So, speaking of children and work and all the things, let's talk about balancing jobs, marriage challenges, kids, things like that. I'm going to talk about job. Brandy's going to talk about kids. First thing you need to do is like, listen, you have a relationship, you have a job. Which one is more important? The answer should always be your relationship. Always. If your job is more important, you're not in the right relationship. And that, I know, feels like a really like hard black and white line. However, it's how I feel, because there have been times where I've 100% focused on my job. And yes, it can be a passion. It can be something that you love. Brandi and I love what we do genuinely. However, if it were hurting our relationship, it would not take us a blink of an eye to say, okay, I'm putting it down. Like, if it had to be at the risk of our relationship. Now, we have wonderful husbands who 100% support what we do, so that wouldn't ever happen, because we talked to our spouses before we got married. We asked all the right questions. But you really have to set a boundary between your work and your personal life. You have to know when to put it down, and you have to be communicating with your partner about what those boundaries look like. Maybe you work a 9 to 5, and that means after 5 p.m., phones are away. We're not talking about work. We're doing something for our family. Maybe you're like me. I do not work a 9 to 5. I'm up early. I work odd times. I have meetings with people at odd times. My schedule really changes from week to week. And so for my husband and I, we really try to take Fridays and Saturdays as our Sabbath time. So that is our rest time. That is our off time. I really like, Brandi even knows if we have a meeting or need to chat about something and we have to do it on a Friday, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Can we? And it's totally always okay if we can't do it, because I really try to make that strict line about those days. So figure out what that boundary looks like for you and be hard about it. Your spouse, your partner, they will appreciate the fact that you've gone to bat for them with your boundaries. And at the same time, support each other in your boundaries. So be understanding of difficult and challenging times in your partner's career too. So like Tommy, a lot of times whenever they're opening a new store, he has to leave for a week at a time. And I'm not over here calling him going, I can't believe you left me with the kids. I can't believe you have me alone working all this, like with the kids and doing all this stuff, and I'm by myself. Like, I would never do that. I'm so supportive of the fact that he has to go and do something for just a short period of time. And he's the same way with me. If I want to travel somewhere, if I want to do things, we are supportive of each other and the things that we want to do, because we know that it's a passion for him. So that's really important. Make sure you're supporting your spouse, your significant other, and what they want to do. And then just prioritize I can say words, quality time. Prioritize
Yes.
quality time. There we go. I got it. Listen, words are hard. Prioritize time together. That's really a simple one. You have to make the time. And I know that this seems like a really simple thing, but if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't make the time, maybe this is just a good reminder. Like, prioritize time together despite your schedule. Find a way to make it work. Do not let it slide, because one too many times and you're going to realize that you're just separated from your partner.
That's so good. Oh, that's so good. All right. So the next one and last one we're going to talk about is kind of managing life after kids, because we all have like the prior to, we're engaged, and then we have the honeymoon phase, and then you have children. Not everybody, but if you do, you know that life has changed after kids, period. It's now you're working, now you're changing diapers, now you're cleaning up more messes, and then you have school and you have errands and you have sports, and holy moly, it's just a different different game. And we love this. And, you'll never get the time back with your kids, but you can't lose your relationship with your spouse and those years of your kids growing up. Because if that happens when your kids are 18 and they're out of the house, you guys don't even know each other anymore. And what a shame that would be. So make sure you're prioritizing your relationship no matter what. And what does that look like? Like, we've already talked about date nights. We've already talked about talking and communicating with your spouse. But maybe it's like after you put the kids to bed, you guys watch a show together. Something as simple as that. Now you're making time. Or Mitch and I will sometimes pass off who does nighttime routine. I'm always doing morning routine, but we'll do sometimes because I'm like, oh, I need a little break, and he'll do it for me. And then there's other nights where I'm like, I just want all of us together in the bed, and we're doing that together, right? We're reading books together. It's family time. So just making sure you figure out those little times that you can spend with your spouse. If your spouse loves working out, mine doesn't. Maybe you guys work out together. So my son works out with me, but not my husband. I tried. It's not happening. But
how did both of us end up with spouses that do not like to work out?
Opposites attract. Mitch actually builds houses though, so he's like, I already work out. And I was like, but that's not cardio. Like, can you just go for a walk with me? But figuring out little things, whether that's, a show after the kids are in bed, something earlier in the morning before they wake up, or workout time, whatever it is, making sure you guys do that time together. Sharing responsibilities is so important. Dividing parenting tasks and household chores fairly. This is a day and age where, whether you want to or not, most of the time both parents are working. It's really hard. Inflation is crazy. Like, just even pay the bills. So a lot of times it's like, okay, well, we're both working. Let's both cook. Let's both clean. Let's both, like I just said, we share the nighttime routine. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Mitch, sometimes it's us both. But making sure that it's not all on one person, because that could really cause animosity. That can cause issues in a relationship. And that's actually going back to our first point. Maybe you talk about that before you get married. Maybe you because if you have a spouse who's like, no, listen, like, I don't see things this way. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm expecting you to do X, Y, and Z. If that doesn't align with your heart, then maybe you don't get married, right? Yeah. Having that conversation is really important. And then sometimes it'll be, we switch. Sometimes I'm working so much that maybe Mitch is doing more of the things around the house. And then the next week I'm doing more because the last week you did, just depending on what's going on. Like Cecily was saying, when Tommy's traveling for that week, maybe Cecily's doing all the household stuff, but then Tommy comes home and I'm sure Tommy's doing the bulk of it. It's making sure that you guys are sharing in the chores fairly. All right. Also make sure you're seeking support, whether it's family members, whether it's friends, especially when you have a newborn or a baby, especially your first one, because that just shakes your world. And a lot of times we want to be like, oh, we can do it all on our own. It is okay. It is okay to ask for help. Okay. Like, you're not meant to do everything on your own. So if somebody just comes over to watch the baby while you take a nap or while you do the dishes, and like, people want to do that. Listen, I just had my last baby. If somebody else has a baby, a year from now, and they want me to come over and watch their baby while they nap, yes, sign me up. I love me some chitlins. I'm in, right?
I love babies. I'm always trying to take people's babies. I'm like, I will hold your baby. Give me your baby.
I will tell you this, Cecily. I looked at Mitch the other day and I was like, just one more, because he hasn't had his little procedure yet. And we said we are done. Given our circumstances, we should be done. I'm not good pregnant. I've had a lot of issues with it, but I'm like, because Kate's getting big. Getting big. No, I know. But I'm like, he's like, no. He's like, no. We've talking communication, right? We agreed. He's like, Brandi, we agreed. You cannot go back on this.
I'm trying to convince Tommy to like foster a whole bunch of children. Aww. I'm like, let's just have a house full of kids. And the other day, he didn't say no. He was like, we'll talk about it. I was like, that's a maybe. I'll take it.
I could see that in your future. Yeah.
I will say though, on support, listen, if you don't have family nearby, you've got to rely on your friends for support. Like, your friends should be people you reach out to, and it will affect your relationship if you are not able to ask for help, just like Brandi said, because you cannot expect your spouse, your partner to be everything. Like, these are new experiences that you guys are going to go through together. You've got to be asking outside people for help, both of you, and really sharing what's going on with each other. So totally agree with everything she just said. All right. Listen, as we wrap up today's episode, we just want to take a minute to reflect on the powerful tools and strategies that we've talked about for building a lasting marriage and relationship. From talking about communication to aligning your goals and values and keeping the romance alive to managing the challenges that come with parenting and all of that sort of stuff. We've covered a lot of different steps towards just really nurturing a strong and enduring relationship. So make sure that if there's anyone that you think that this might impact or help, make sure to follow, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might benefit. And we want you to remember that you are beautiful, you are capable, and you are worthy.